Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the appropriately named Rapid Response Center here in Senator Martin's district, I believe, and Representative Miller's district. So thank you both for being here. I was just telling Governor Shapiro that I wish we weren't meeting on this occasion. There would be many happier things in agriculture to talk about. But here we are today, have had a tremendous opportunity the last couple of weeks to interact with Governor Shapiro. I told him that we haven't had many chances to cross paths, mostly because he made the phenomenal decision to appoint Secretary Redding, or convince Nina that Russell could spend another 4 years with the Department of Agriculture. We all know, everybody in this room knows how important Secretary Redding and his staff are to what we do here. What we have is an unprecedented partnership between the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, PenAg, USDA, the university system, our laboratories. We have Penn State and University of Pennsylvania, and many others who have worked very hard to put together, first of all, this facility, but also this reaction to this very difficult situation. Unprecedented support from our legislature. Again, many are here, Senator Martin and the crew. There's no state in America who has stepped up and done more for their poultry industry through this time than Pennsylvania. And we're very grateful for that. And we would not be where we are today without that support and the partnership with the Department of Agriculture, USDA, and Penn State and Penn. So again, a lot to be grateful for. I can also tell you that the last 3 weeks have been some of the most difficult in my almost 40-year career. Unfortunately, we've had to address about 7.5 million birds, mostly in Lancaster County, that have been affected by the avian influenza. So this is a very timely discussion. Very thankful for Governor Shapiro's personal interest in this. I believe by now he can teach a 3-credit course in various aspects of avian influenza. Have been amazed by that. So with no, for your benefit, Governor, around this table and in this room, we have about 100% of the poultry industry in Pennsylvania. Very proud of this industry. You know how much they have stepped up. You also will recognize there's a lot of competitors in this room, and no one has been, if their neighbor, their competitor needed something, typical Pennsylvania way, they were there for that. So again, thankful for your, to be here today, and with no further ado, Governor Shapiro.
Chris, thank you, and good morning, everyone. I wanted the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you, give you an update from our perspective. I'll then turn it over to Secretary Redding to offer some remarks, and then the most important thing for me today is to hear from all of you. So we'll have a conversation, a discussion, and learn what I need to learn from you so that we can continue to be your advocates and get through this. I want to begin by thanking Chris Herr for his outstanding leadership and partnership. I think he and the Secretary have spoken every day. We've spoken several times, including on a Zoom last week, which I think some of you were on. This is an example. By the way, just as this site is a unique site in the entire country, this is an example of how government, private sector advocates all need to work together. Typically, we're able to work together to lift up our industry. I think we've got the best farmers, best poultry industry in the entire country. But we also need to come together in a time of crisis, which is what we are facing now. So it's in that spirit of cooperation that brings us here today. I want to take a moment and thank the lawmakers who are here. Some of what I will talk about today and the resources the Commonwealth can bring to bear is as a result of bipartisan work that we do every day in the Capitol, and now we are in a position where we've got to lean on one another to get through this. So the aforementioned Senator Martin, whose district we are in, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having us here today. Representative Miller, whose district we are in. But I think it is also important to note we're joined by our other senator from Lancaster County, Senator Malone. Thank you very much. I know many areas of your district have kind of been at the center of this. Representative Mal is here, as well as Senator Schwank. Why are they important? They are two of the chairs of our agriculture committees in the legislature. You've got Democrats here, you've got Republicans here. There is no partisan way to address high-path avian influenza. It requires all of us to work together, and I think it's important for you to note who is all here today. And there may be, during the discussion, a question about something in the legislature, and I'll lean on you gentlemen, you, Madam Chair, as well, to answer those questions. Let me give an update on where things stand. We are obviously in crisis mode when it comes to high-path avian influenza. As of this morning, we have 26 flocks that have been impacted, representing about 7.6 million birds. Just to put that into some perspective for you, it is not only earlier, dramatically earlier in the season than what we expected. That represents more than half of all cases in the entire United States of America. So Pennsylvania is really, sadly, at the epicenter of this. I want to talk to you about the response that we've engaged in since we learned about this now about 3 or so weeks ago, and since things really sort of caught fire, if you will, about a week ago. We have deployed significant more personnel from the Commonwealth to help address this crisis. Right now, we've got more than 105 staff engaged on this work every single day, both from the Commonwealth, from the Ag Department, and from the USDA. I'll come back to the USDA in just a moment, along with some of our other partners. I have also authorized the Secretary to go out and hire 11 new personnel to complement our efforts here. And we've done away with all the bureaucracy that typically takes months and months and months for people to come on board. Of those 11, 5 have been identified. Some are literally starting this week. We are not delaying on this at all. And the Secretary is doing a great job of identifying the others who are going to be needed to help complement his efforts. He'll speak on that in just a moment. In addition to that, I've given Secretary Redding the authorization to move through our procurement process very quickly again. Typical procurement could take weeks or months. The Secretary is now down to hours for procurement for materials as needed. He can speak more about that. In addition, I want you to know that we are coordinating directly with the federal government. I've spoken to members of President Trump's senior team and have spent a significant amount of time with Secretary Rollins, including in person at the White House on Friday, I believe it was. Let me talk to you about my 3 asks of the USDA and where each of those asks stand. First, I made an ask on staffing that we have what they commonly refer to as the blue team come to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's a team of more than 25 people. They are now on site, as I think you all know, here in the Commonwealth. My second ask was that blue team not leave, and if they had to leave, that there be the next team that comes in place so there would be no gap between the staffing at the federal level. Secretary Rollins has given me her word that the blue team would remain as long as they could, and should we need staffing for longer than the blue team could remain, we would have an immediate new team come in and there would be no gap in the staffing there. So we appreciate that commitment. Second thing I asked of Secretary Rollins and the USDA and her senior team, who, by the way, have been terrific. Secretary Redding can speak to that we needed a bit of relief on some of the federal requirements on dispatching veterinarians in these hot zones to work directly with Dr. Hamburg, who joins us here today. And by the way, Dr. Hamburg, I don't know how he's done this. He hasn't slept in about 3 weeks, and he and his team are doing an amazing job. The Secretary Rollins and the feds have agreed to kind of push the boundaries on some of those federal requirements on veterinarians and give us a lot more latitude and give Dr. Hamburg more latitude so that we could increase our complement of veterinarians. So we're in a good place on that. Third thing we've discussed, because I've heard it directly from Chris and from many of you, is whether or not a vaccine was going to be a possibility in the short term. Let me give you an update on where things stand there. Look, obviously, we all agree we need to make science-based decisions. Secretary Rollins, Secretary Redding, and I are all in agreement on that. We also understand that a vaccine could be complementary to other efforts. But Secretary Rollins was also very direct with us that this is not a tomorrow thing, that this would take months and months and months to deploy, if it at all, and that it would likely be in the form of a pilot, not sort of universal across the board. They're obviously dealing with some dynamics at the federal level, both the trade dynamics that are going to be incredibly important here, and some other dynamics related to vaccines within their administration. So we appreciate the open line of communication there with them. We're going to continue to talk about it. But I want to be clear, this is not something that we're going to be able to deploy in communities tomorrow. This is going to be more of a long game that we're going to have to play here. Let me talk a little bit about our preparedness. We have worked together. Senator Martin and I were together, I think, 2 years ago on a farm, a wonderful multi-generational farm, where we talked about the need to create a high-path avian influenza.
And Jim is here, Jim Sharp.
Oh, good to see you, Jim. Thank you. We were at Jim's farm, so thank you, Secretary Redding, where we talked about the need to establish some kind of a fund to help our poultry producers get back up on their feet if their flocks were destroyed. Here's the good news. We all came together on a bipartisan basis, created the only fund of its kind in the entire country, High Path Avian Influenza Fund, which right now has $60 million in it. That $60 million, if it is not sufficient to help our poultry farmers get back up on their feet, the legislature has also given me the authority to dip into other funds in order to increase that. So we have resources available to be able to get folks back up on their feet and for the business continuity that I know we need. We also understand that there will be delays here when you've got those zones where we are sort of closed off. We know that it is going to take some number of weeks, 5, 6, 7 weeks, to get things back to normal operations. We have a state fund that can help during that time, and we look forward to deploying that as needed. Look, here's the final thing I want to say. I'll turn it over to Secretary Redding in a moment, and then to all of you. We're going to get through this. We are going to get through this. This is not good. This is obviously a scary time. I know this is a time of great worry and great anxiety. I get it. We're going to get through it, and I'm going to be there with you every step of the way. This is the kind of moment that tests us, but as I said at the top, we are a community that's been tested before, and I think we lean on one another, public sector, private sector, advocacy organizations like PenAg, and we are going to work our way through this, and we're going to get through it together. And I just need you to know that we've got your back in this. It is important for me as we go forward here to continue to hear from you, to hear what is needed, to allow me to go work my tail off to deliver for you, to allow the Secretary to know what he needs to do to work for you. So I hope what we can do here in our time together is to have a constructive dialogue about what you're seeing out there, where the gaps are. You can also tell us what's working well so we can amp more of that up. Let us know if there's anything additional we need on the federal side. I'll continue to work with Secretary Rollins to make sure that, that they're delivering for us. And again, just know we're going to get through this. We're going to work together. And brighter days are ahead for our poultry producers, our farmers, and our entire ag industry across our Commonwealth as we work our way through this. So with that, I'll turn it to Secretary Redding for some opening comments.
Governor, thank you, and I'll come back to your support in just a moment. But I can tell everybody here, listen, this has been an everyday conversation between the governor's office and team, the governor personally. There hasn't been one thing that we've asked for that hasn't been answered and addressed and engaged. But let me come back to the governor in just a moment. I want to start at the very top and say thank you, certainly to this industry. You know, we've built a $7 billion industry in the state, and we're proud of that. You look at the last sort of USDA census, I mean, poultry and the poultry industry continues to really rise up, right? And we're very, very proud of that. And that's a credit to each of you and the extended farmers and relationships that you have. So thank you for that. To Chris and Penn Ag, I want to say thank you to Chris and the whole team, certainly to Mary Beth as President of Penn Ag, and the work that they have continually done to keep us engaged, to keep us sort of at the table, if you will, thinking about the many dimensions. As you know, this is very dynamic, right? This changes by the hour at times, and certainly overnight, always. I want to say thank you to Dr. Hamburg and Dr. Luley and the entire animal health team at PDA. There have been some very tense conversations just given the subject matter, right? The types of decisions that we're called upon to make in real time. You cannot delay these, right? There's not a tomorrow, I'll get back to you, right? You have a few minutes to make snap decisions, and that takes somebody with a steady hand and all of the credentials that Dr. Hamburg and Dr. Luley bring to the table. So thank you. And certainly to our PDA team who behind the scenes are doing all this contract work, and Executive Deputy Greg Hostetter and Deputy Secretary Lisa Graybill. There's all kinds of things that have to happen to make this come together. So a special note of thanks to each of them. And of course, as noted, we can't do this without our USDA partners, and to the governor's credit here. I think the tone of those and the spirit of those conversations have been really, really gratifying to know that even under fire, there is a partnership there that is so critical to allowing us to respond both as a nation for the USDA and certainly as a state. And they recognize the dominance of this industry inside that conversation for the nation. Right? Every conversation they're having about poultry and diseases and trade and vaccines and people are looked at through the prism of Pennsylvania. That is an important aspect. We're reminded always, I think, in these moments of the assets that we have. And I think I've tried to train myself to think about, as bad as this is, what do I have access to, right? And we're here in this Rapid Response Center, and as noted, there's not two of these in the nation, there's one, and it happens to be here in Pennsylvania. We also know that the strength of our relationships, both in government, between governmental entities, but also between the legislature and industry and the partners and communities is critical. And that work is dependent on each other, right? What I do, what the governor does, what the legislature does, all very critical. And we have seen, I'll say, the very best in people. The very best in people. I mean, these are not easy conversations at any level. They can test your patience for sure and your diplomacy, but I'm still proud of all of that. We really have seen the very, very best of people. Unprecedented for anybody who's been around this for some years, and certainly to the industry. You've got to reach back to the early 80s to see the dynamic we're witnessing today, right? That was the very first onslaught. That fits into the asset list, right? That was a time when we did not have an Animal Health and Diagnostic Commission. We didn't have the paddles system, and Dean Hoffman is here, and Dean Penn State is here, our whole partnership. We didn't have a paddle system. That is important, but unprecedented because we now see the value of those assets, right, and how important they are. We know that the assets include both the facilities, I mean, things like this center and the paddles. The response capabilities like the Animal Health Diagnostic Commission. The human capital side, right, as the governor spoke to over 100 folks, and probably that many more who are not in the org chart at the moment who are impacted and part of this. But certainly our support from the House and Senate leadership, the chairman and our House and Senate committees. And then there's this important piece that shows up, I think, in each of these decisions is about leadership. Right, and the leadership of ourselves and how we respond to the situation, right? The leadership that we expect of sort of organizations and both in the private and the public spaces. And we appreciate very much the leadership of the governor From the very early days, I think one of our first sort of visits was to the animal health lab at the Department of Ag, right? Just to see who was in and what is there at the lab. But they have been important moments just to say, seeing those folks, have a governor see those folks is critical, right? I see them all the time, Chris sees them all the time, but having a governor recognize that we have all of these folks who are behind us working on this is critical. He has been encouraging, certainly problem solving, reassuring all the time, and the full confidence of the governor exhibited both to us and to this team. He's been willing to call Dr. Hamburg the last outbreak on Christmas break, right? To check in, that's the human side of both what we see in the governor, but also I think a reminder to all of us that ultimately this is about a people discussion, right? What we do, he's been there. And most recently in the executive actions, being able to move with dispatch, to hire, to procure are things that are critical, and it's made a difference just in the last week. So we appreciate his work, certainly the confidence that he has exhibited in the work that we're doing, but also rising to this moment and reassuring us, as difficult as this is that with this partnership, with these assets, with the resources that we have access to, is that we'll continue to respond. And respond in a way that respects both the private sector and the work that you're doing, but also recognize the work that we do and extend it in the public space, the work that we have to continue to do to contain and suppress this virus. So, Governor, thank you. Always appreciate the support and the work that we're doing together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And look, we are blessed to have the finest ag secretary in the entire country. And for those of you who know Nina, please thank her for us and let her know we appreciate the long hours he puts in. I think it is also important to know while Secretary Redding is coordinating our response, this is a whole of government approach. I've deployed 3 members of our Pennsylvania National Guard to work with Secretary Redding. We have members of DCNR and other parts of our government. So this is a whole of government approach, and we're going to get through this together. I think what I'd really like to do now is open it up. There are a number of us here. Try and be brief. Just identify yourself, where you're from, what you do. Make your point, ask your question. I promise you a forthright answer, and if I don't have an answer, I promise you we will get back to you with it. And so we'll begin
Mike Martz.
With Mike Martz. So, Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Governor Shapiro and Secretary Redding. I was asked just to speak a little bit about our experience when we broke with avian influenza in December of 2023. It was 3 days before Christmas, and it restored, to echo what Governor Shapiro said, being a bipartisan issue. It certainly was a bipartisan effort, and it restored my faith definitely in our state government. Essentially, we were diagnosed 3 days before Christmas, and I remember saying to my father, I said, "Dad, I think we're going to be on our own for a few days because the government's not going to work during Christmas." Boy, was I wrong. I cannot speak enough about the way the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture was there from start to finish. The advice we got, Secretary Redding, I remember the first day after we were diagnosed, you sent us pizza. Our employees never forgot that. And I remember talking to Dr. Hamburg that evening when we got diagnosed, and he said, "Mike," he said, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at it. We're here to help. And you got the A-team and Dan Hohenthaler, who's contracted with Penn Ag, obviously. Penn Ag collaborated with us. Chris Herr, I believe, was there Christmas Eve day. Dr. Hamburg, Deputy Graybill were there the entire time, and we had about 60 people working there. When we started this depopulation in the game bird industry in particular with 70 acres of flight pens, you can imagine the concern and how long that may take and how long it may take our neighbors to get back up and running and for the control zone to be lifted. And we had everything cleaned up within 7 days with the amount of help we had and with the amount of resources from the Pennsylvania Department of Ag and the USDA. So I really appreciate all the help across the aisle. We had Republicans there, we had Democrats there, and we got help from all of them. And that's a testament to the leadership of the current administration, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Mike. Others?
Yeah, let's, Mike, one follow-up. Sorry, one follow-up, Pete. Just talk about the neighbors, right? I want you to just talk about who else was in your neighborhood and the sensitivities to you being positive and what actions were taken around that.
So that was one of our biggest concerns right off the get-go. We have the third largest game farm in the country, largest game farm in Pennsylvania being Mahantungo Game Farm, who also happens to supply the Pennsylvania Game Commission with all their chicks. There would not be a propagation program if they went down. It would be down for a year. So township roads were immediately closed off. We informed Mahantungo Game Farm right when we got tested. We had one pen out of 120 pens that had some sick birds. They were initially diagnosed with marble spleen, not avian influenza. But we informed them, hey, there's something going on here. Stay away from us. Don't let your employees come anywhere close to us. And we also had 2 Jergowitz growers that were right in the infected area. And I don't want to say how many broiler houses and operations around, but that was a huge concern. And I'm just thankful that with all the help we had from our employees, friends, neighbors, and also PennAg and the state government, USDA, it allowed those folks to get started back up much quicker and get back to business.
Great.
Does that answer?
Yeah, that's helpful. I think just giving a sense, I mean, it's your farm, but you've got a lot of responsibilities in that neighborhood to others who may be in poultry and to your employees, so thank you.
Well, that was one of my 3 big main concerns in addition to our employees and just the future direction of the business when we were hit. But one was neighbors.
Yeah, thank you. Heather, could you share? I mean, then we'll come to Scott as a one deck. But Heather, just tell us a little bit about your operation and perspective on the response.
I'm Heather Lewis. At that time, we were broiler farmers in East Donegal Township, Lancaster County. We have since changed to pullets now, but we were scheduled to get birds. I forget the day of the week. It was like 3 days, and Crider's broke about a mile from us. This was back in 22.
Hey, Heather.
Yeah.
If I could just ask you to speak in your mic a little bit closer.
Sure thing.
I want to make sure everybody can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we sat empty for 99 days, and we just waited and waited while everything kept happening around us. And the recovery grant that we were able to apply for was super helpful to us. We are first-generation farmers in Pennsylvania. And we have mortgages to pay, and we have bills to pay. And it was fast, it was direct, it was easy to apply for. Chris sent us the application, and he helped get us going right away on it, so that things didn't have to wait, and we were ready. We were more than ready once the birds were able to come back to our area and produce a healthy protein for this growing population. Since then, have we talked about moving out of Pennsylvania? We have. It feels risky, but is there another state that we would want to move to that we would feel so supported? And there's not. So as we look at our future generations, and we want to become one of those multi-generation farms, it's here in Pennsylvania, because we know that we're supported by so many.
That's great. You're not allowed to leave, Heather, so you're
Not
stuck.
allowed to leave.
Can I just ask, on the recovery fund, I appreciate the fact that you thought it was smooth and seamless.
Yeah.
We're the only state in the country with this, and we're working really hard to move those dollars out quick. Any other feedback on that, particularly as we presume we're going to now face a real demand on that? Anything we could learn from your experience as we go forward here?
From our experience, the application was easy. I don't know if it's changed since 22.
Okay.
Our integrator at the time had also helped us. So while we didn't need 100% of what we had lost, we were able to become mostly whole again. And it was easy. It was quick. We went over it with, I think I reviewed it with one of our ag lenders just to make sure nothing was being missed.
Okay.
And the money came fast, so we were able to keep up with payments.
Great. Thank you. By the way, I mentioned Chairman Mao, Chairwoman Schwank, two heads of our agriculture committees, House and Senate. We're also joined by the majority chair in the House, Eddie Day-Pashinsky. So you've now got 3 of the 4 ag secretaries, pardon me, ag chairs who are here. We appreciate you being with us.
Yeah.
Scott, you're up. Should have a green light on.
Scott, I'm surprised you're talking. You never have anything to say.
So anyway,
Pull it down.
I've been coming to these meetings since 1983. I probably own more chickens in here than anybody with any species in the state, and I never had the flu. And I have 8 farms sitting empty now in the black zone. Here's a picture from 1983, and it looks the same today. So we've gotten very good at cleaning up messes, and we're doing a terrible job at avoiding why we have the problem in the first place. The birds are going to keep flying. They're going to have a, have a flu that doesn't necessarily kill them. But here on Earth, we screw it up. Too many birds on a farm. We have birds, wild birds mingling with domesticated birds. We send them into New York. We make the virus hot. We drag it back here. Back in the early 80s, one time I brought crates back from New York and set them in the barn to load some fowl that we had left over from something. And within 24 hours, all the birds were dead in the barn. And I told the veterinarians at one of these meetings, the virus is in New York and it's very hot. And 2 weeks later, when it became somebody else's idea, they sent some veterinarians to New York and realized it was very hot, and we drug it back to the States. I don't think it ever gets very hot here, but as we have different species mingling together and put them in a tight space in a New York market, and the New York market is 10 times as big as it was in 1983. All the Muslims and other people from around the world come in there. They like to see the bird before it's dead and all that stuff, and it's great. And they don't create the problem in New York in the live bird markets. The problem all starts here at our place in Pennsylvania. So I think we're the only company in the United States that cleans out and disinfects the chicken barns between every flock. Most of the world does it that way. Canada does it, Saudi Arabia does it, Russia does it. But here in the States, we have houses that don't get cleaned out between flocks. We get trucks that don't get washed out. We have not all in, all out like most of the world requires. We take some birds out every week, and we have trucks coming back and forth to the farms. And we make a really big mess. The industry, as you could note, in the last couple of years, made more money in the last 4 years from avian influenza than they probably made in the last 20 years put together. We have 9 farms, I think, in the U.S. took the chicken egg market from $1 a dozen to $9 a dozen. 9 farms, and less than 10% was another couple hundred farms across the U.S. But 9 farms changed the egg price, which cost consumers billions of dollars, and we have all this money that we use to pay everybody back, and that's why this is going on from 1983 to now. There's a lot of money made in this business. The universities get grant money. We keep on paying for people's mistakes, and they're not mistakes. They just aren't going to change their habits when they can make so much money with avian influenza. So I'm not happy. I got farms sitting empty here in Lancaster County because with the state law, I can't put birds in those barns till everything's depopped. I believe every chicken that leaves a farm should have a negative blood test before it leaves the farm. I've been doing that since the 80s. When they leave the farm and go to New York, things just get worse and worse, and we drag it back. When we cross state lines with cattle, when we send livestock to other countries, we got a blood test. Before we allow things to come here, we got a blood test. And yet we have stuff leaving the farms. I don't care if you have chickens on the farm. Yeah. We can't keep on taking birds from a farm and creating this big mess that everybody has to pay for.
So let me, I'll look to Dr. Hamburg here to respond on a couple of points. I mean, one, there's no question that, the density of poultry in Pennsylvania is both, as I noted, a blessing and a challenge, right? Just because we've got dairy with poultry and poultry with dairy. Certainly, you underscore this important point of just really good biosecurity by everybody. Right, there is no exemption to anybody. Backyard, the live bird markets, commercial poultry, and we've been working hard at that. Some of our challenges have been certainly in the live bird market where we haven't had the adherence to all the good biosecurity protocols, which have gotten us both local problems and then interstate issues that we're working on. But I think we're getting better. I think you just keep preaching that we need to do those basic elementary biosecurity pieces for sure. Everybody has to do that. We've got really good baseline testing, and to your point about what birds are tested and what the frequency of that testing. We'll have a quarantine order. We've made some attempts at that. We'll do another one that really gets at the live bird market issue. And back to the USDA for a moment. That was one of the points of conversation with Secretary Rollins, is just sort of the unique profile of Pennsylvania poultry industry to have both the live bird market density, to be close to these metropolitan markets, at the same time all intermixed among commercial sector. But let me have Dr. Hamburg, if you don't mind, just respond to a couple of those points, and then we'll reach around here to talk to both Dean Hoffman at the vet school and Jeff Hyde at Penn State, just to talk about the partnership work that's being done. Dr. Hamburg?
You definitely hit the nail on the head with biosecurity. That is our best tool right now. There's a lot that we know about this virus. I'm sure there's stuff out there we don't know yet. So we need more research on how to do it even better than what we're doing. But I think we need to contrast a little bit. We talked just now about the 1983-1984 outbreak. Just now, even with this large uptick that we've had in cases, we are now approaching the number of birds that were lost in 1983-84. So, we're now 4 years into this, and we're now approaching what was lost in, a year and 3/4 back in the 80s.
You got to remember, we have one farm with 3 million birds just went down. And when you talk about 7 million birds that go down, that may be 2 farms. There's thousands of farms in PA. Yeah. But the numbers are different since 83, that there's what we lost in 83 in today's standards would be 3 or 4 farms.
Absolutely. The farms are bigger. The density is higher. Lancaster County is the most densely populated poultry county in the country. And if not the most, it's up there in the top 1 or 2. So that density is a real big challenge here. We also have diversity, right? We've got everything from our live bird market, our plain sex, our modern farms of every sector. And you brought up that link between the live bird market system and our poultry health here in Pennsylvania. I do agree testing is helpful. With the introduction of the current strain, that blood test, which tests for antibodies, is now largely invalidated. So all of our control programs up until 2022 focused on if you can control low-path avian influenza, you can then control high-path avian influenza, because you needed to have a resident low-path strain in that flock to recombine with a wild bird high-path strain in order to cause disease. The strain that came over, the Eurasian goose strain that came over in 2022, that is the first time that high-path AI is directly infectious from our wild waterfowl to our domestic chickens and turkeys and things of that nature. So for that reason, PCR is going to be a much more valuable tool going forward. To help break that cycle of what happens in the markets, bleeding back into Pennsylvania, we came up with the live bird market system biosecurity assurance program. We issued it. There was some pushback on it, so we've pulled it back for a bit. We're revising it, revamping it, but I agree, we need biosecurity to be much more widespread. All of those farms that don't have biosecurity, they are a risk to their neighbors.
If farms didn't leave the bird, if everything left the farm negative, we wouldn't even have this meeting. No. We make a big mess out of it as soon as it leaves the farm hot, at any level. It just gets worse.
We've done a really good job of tamping down lateral spread. We've had very little lateral spread since 2022 here in Pennsylvania. The epidemiologic evidence shows that the vast majority of these are wild bird introductions, but I still, to your point, biosecurity is key there. But our lateral spread has gone down dramatically, and it's mostly within the live bird market flocks that we've seen that lateral spread. So we are working to revise and reissue that program to hopefully decrease that lateral spread and require biosecurity.
How did it get to the live bird market in the first place?
In 1983 or now?
Anytime.
Well, it comes from wild birds into the domestic birds, and then it spreads.
It comes from the farm.
It does.
Yeah. Farms are critical. I mean, no doubt about it, right? You've got to be, on the biosecurity and the things that we have witnessed over the last, month, but particularly the last year. We preach it every day. I mean, there's live bird market, particularly live bird markets, just the commingling of birds and where they get shipped to and how they get moved around sort of magnifies, our problem. Commissioner Jim Shirk, you just want to share, and then we'll go to our Penn State and UPenn team here.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and Governor Shapiro. Thank you very much. I'll go down a little bit more.
Yeah, pull that right in.
There we go. Very good. Again, I want to echo the thank you. This has been an unprecedented response, and the bipartisanship that we've seen to address really a challenging issue for our state is really something to behold, so it's wonderful to see. The thing that I would comment on, too, is that people are tired. This is not just a one-day battle. This is a very, very long time. And I appreciate that, Mr. Secretary, that you mentioned kind of the mental health side to that. So the workers are tired. We have new people coming in. That's tremendous to see on there. We also want to make sure that we don't look past that mental health aspect, because it takes a long time to recover. You work your lifetime growing birds, trying to keep birds healthy, and all of a sudden they're gone in truly a blink of an eye. So the amount of effort that has already been there is great, but I think that's one other issue that I think could be substantially moved forward and just brought in with the Department of Health or with others to help bring professionals in for this really long-term impacts for it. But again, just thank you for everything that's been done.
Jim, I'm particularly sensitive on the mental health piece of this, and I think we're doing a good job. We need to do a great job on this. Tell me what we need to do to get to a great job. How do we deploy the mental health professionals in a way that makes them easily accessible and makes folks who might not otherwise want to access their care be a little bit more open to it? I know there's still, look, let's be real, there's still a stigma associated with mental health. We should be open about that, and we need to knock that down and create avenues to access this care. What do we need to do better?
That's the very relevant question, is because admitting that a mental health challenge is something that we fight every single day on that. It's very tough to admit that I'm struggling with something that's moving forward with it. So just having access to things that people can take care of privately there. The pizza that showed up for the guys at Mart's Farm that came through, that was really a part of a mental health that they could feel appreciated and said, hey, here's a big thank you. But if there's a way to say thank you, and if you want to talk some more, here's a way to do it. So I wish I had a better answer for you on exactly the paths for that, but I think that there's certainly a need there that could be explored.
We have found that for some, accessing that mental healthcare, literally over their phones with, not literally Zoom, but some kind of a video conference, is in some ways a little bit. Folks sometimes are more apt to do that. It's a little bit more private than having a more public discussion on a farm. Would that be something that you think would be of interest? Yeah. We can deploy different resources. I just want to make sure that we are getting the resources directly to the people needed in the mode that they find it most helpful.
And I think that's a tremendous idea, because it allows for privacy. It allows for people that may not have a whole lot of technology in their homes, but they probably have a cell phone on there to do things too. So I think that's a tremendous idea to increase access.
Okay. Secretary Redding will follow up with Secretary Bogan, who leads our Department of Health, Secretary Arkush, who leads our Department of Human Services, and we will figure out ways to increase even more the mental health services that we're providing in different mediums. So thanks for raising that, Jim. That's an important point.
If I could add one other quick thing. I serve on the Animal Health Commission representing essentially poultry. And I do just want to put a kudos out to the laboratory systems, to the PDA staff that are going above and beyond every single day to meet this need. This is not a 9-to-5 response that it takes for dealing with avian influenza. So the staff has worked tremendously with industry, with USDA, with PDA. But again, I'd be remiss to not say thank you to all of those people for what they're doing every single day. So.
Yeah, thank you for saying it. We appreciate them very, very much. And look, let's be real. This is not going to end tomorrow. This is going to go on for some period of time here, and we have to acknowledge that the longer this goes, the more mentally and physically challenging this gets for folks. And so we appreciate the staff and the good work that they are doing, and we'll make sure that we convey your thanks as well.
Thank you.
I know we have others, but Senator Martin, you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, thank you, Governor. And Jim, thank you for that question and just posing the concept of maybe the Department of Ag crossing over and talking with our folks at PEMA. Obviously, the whole concept of mental health related resources, whether it's to first responders or to victims at a various incident, that maybe there's some lesson that we can learn in terms of how it's deployed so that we don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. Maybe the answer is right there potentially in front of us, that we could actually deploy things at these incidents much sooner.
Good suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, Governor, and to sort of follow up, and I'm going to look at Ben as I'm going to talk here for a few minutes. You know, tough week, tough couple weeks. And we talk about this mental health aspect. I can relate to it, you know, personally. At Crater Farms, a lot of immigrant help. Workers that I have just been amazed at their willingness to show up to do the kind of things that I can't even imagine the last month or so. The tremendous work they've done. Not only the pressure of helping to depopulate, 5 or 6 million birds, but everything else that's going on in their world right now. And Ben, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I will, just to talk about those challenges. Again, we're here, it's here, it's not going to go away today. We need to, look long-term, but we also need to look at the short-term things, which is why the governor's here. So, Ben?
Thanks, Chris. And thank you, Governor Shapiro and Secretary Redding. Thank you, Dr. Hamburg. You've been great through this most recent outbreak. Certainly, farmers, when they come to work in the day or wake up in the morning and go to do their job, the last thing they want to see is animals sick or ill. And in this situation, having to potentially put down a farm is very emotional and stressful for everyone involved. Certainly, there's a wide range of emotion. From am I going to have a job tomorrow to hey, how are we going to continue to feed people? Because that's what farmers do. We get up in the morning and we come to work and we feed people. And there's a mix of all that, but farmers are also resilient. And that's one thing that I can talk about my team at Crater Farms. We're resilient. We're down for now, but we'll be back. We're going to continue to get birds in the next few months and get back to the market. So we're okay. The farm will continue. Farmer, we're strong, and that's basically my response.
Let's Jim, you mentioned the paddles partners. So Dr. Jeff Hyde is here, Associate Dean, and Dean Hoffman, if you don't mind. Let me just talk about two things. I think just sort of in your case, Jeff, sort of the extension's response and been critical in a lot of those field activities and continued support in the lab. And with the addition of the Western Lab, of course, coming on board, and Dean Hoffman, if you don't mind, your experiences, I think, around both the field response from veterinarians, but also perspective on vaccine would be helpful. But Jeff, do you mind?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I want to start by saying, sort of underscoring this notion of the partnership. And many of you know my story. I was here for 19 years, went to Texas for 4.5, came back about 2 years ago now. We didn't have this there. Secretary Redding's heard me say that a lot since I came back. This kind of partnership between government, industry, and the university around topics like this just didn't exist. So I appreciate the point that you're in a good place. With regards to extension, we've got a number of people who, four subject matter experts who are working alongside many of your operations, or within many of your operations on composting. We're actively providing support for what we do at our core as an educational organization and trying to get good biosecurity practices in place. Dr. John Boney's at a workshop today with a group talking about biosecurity in the game bird industry. And so we're doing a lot, and we would like to think that we're making an impact, but we couldn't do that without the partnerships and the connections that we have represented in this room. So really proud of what we do, and look forward to continuing to be part of the solution.
Who do you want to partner with that for some reason you haven't been able to? The bureaucracy gets in the way, funding gets in the way, whatever, something gets in the way. How can we extend the partnership? I appreciate the fact that we're kind of one of one across the country. I'm really proud of that. Yeah. But we can always strive to do better. So what's that one partnership you want that we haven't been able to put together?
I may have to get back to you because, kind of like you both said earlier in your opening comments, when we reach out around situations like this, especially, there's a positive response. And so I feel really good, Governor, about where we are.
Okay.
And if anything comes to mind, I'll let you know. But I don't see any barriers with regard to connections that need to be made.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Chris. I do think that the partnership in Pennsylvania is phenomenal, and I think the paddle system, including PennVet and Penn State and PVH, are functioning well, and that's an infrastructure that's critical to tackle any sort of epidemic. We have pathologists, we have virologists, we have veterinarians in the field that are very active in this investigation, and we have Dr. Hamburg, who we rely on, and Dr. Luley we rely on for leadership, and I think that's been a very effective team. I think the mental health issue is really important. It's important for farmers, producers. It's veterinarians also have day-to-day contact with those producers and farmers, and we now have training, accelerated training in veterinary social work, which addresses this issue on the farm. We are not licensed counselors, but we have dual degrees now that veterinarians can take both certificates and masters in social work. So just wanted to throw that out there that we do need more support for that program, and proposals have been issued in the past for these programs to build out veterinarian on the farm counseling. So as a trusted medical professional. As far as the outbreak goes, I mean, 40 years I've been a veterinarian, large animal vet. I'm hearing the frustration. I understand the challenges, the uncertainty, and the impact. I've been through many outbreaks. And I think we're really getting to that point where you have to make a decision on vaccination. Biosecurity is by far the most important protector across the United States. But when you have a poultry industry with the current commercial densities that we're looking at and the movement of birds, you have to start to weigh the risks versus the benefits of instituting a warp speed approach to vaccination. We've done it in the past. We shouldn't be afraid to do it in the present. And we have the sequences of this virus. We have unprecedented new technologies to develop vaccines across the different types. We have industry partnerships that already have vaccines that have been deployed in Europe and other parts of the world that are effective and safe. And it's really a matter of making the decision to move forward with candidates, and as you say, Governor, institute a pilot program, which is, I think, the appropriate way to go about this. In the middle of an outbreak, it's very difficult to do that, of course, but it's also a good time to get more support from the USDA to move forward on these vaccines. There are opportunities to vaccinate zoo animals, backyard animals, commercial flocks of all kinds, as well as game farms and so forth. So I'm speaking to you now as a very strong advocate to accelerate that effort towards building out a vaccine for the commercial poultry. I think that the world has come to the point where we see the risks not only for birds but also for potential spread to humans, and that is not something that we want to see layered on top of this. So, but our veterinarians are being trained and graduating and coming out ready to work in this field, and that's what we're mostly proud of. So, yeah, thank you for convening. I think it's really important to have the conversation.
Thank you, Dean Hoffman. And I think it was Thursday night, Secretary Redding, we were on a Zoom with Secretary Rollins at 10 o'clock at night, working through these issues and really having, I think, a very frank and forthright conversation about vaccination. And they have, and this is not in any way meant to be a criticism, they've got a lot of dynamics that they have to work through at the federal level. And I made very, very clear, we're open, we're ready, whether it's a pilot or whether it's a broader deployment, that we would very much like to, have Pennsylvania be a place where we could deploy these vaccines. And so I just wanted to kind of set the table in the beginning with my comments to suggest this is not a tomorrow thing. This is not going to get us through the next few weeks here. The Secretary was clear about that, but it is part of an active and ongoing conversation. And with your permission, I'll share your feedback with the USDA partners that we have. I know Madam Chair Schwank had a comment or a question you want to jump in on.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you. First of all, I'm State Senator Judy Schwank. I am Minority Chair of the Democratic Ag and Rural Affairs Committee, and I'm a consumer. So what we're talking about here today matters. And in the county that I represent, we not only have poultry, but we also have plenty of dairy farms with chicken houses on them as well. So it's something that's of great concern to me. I would most certainly want to thank all of the producers that are here, all the technicians. Governor and Secretary, you've convened a great team. Thank you for putting this together today. I actually serve on a national legislative committee of legislative, state, ag, and rural affairs leaders. Pennsylvania is envied for what we do, not only for what we're talking about here, but we also have the first Pennsylvania Farm Bill. Nobody else has even come close to doing that yet, so kudos to you. But I do have a couple of questions. One is, we need to get ahead of the curve on this, that we should not have to be continually, responding in an emergency way. That will happen. I mean, this is the nature of what we're dealing with. But in terms of what the legislature has to do, should we be investing more in the biosecurity then, in addition to what we're putting into to help farmers recover? Is this something we should be looking at? Because here we are, we're about ready, we have a budget before us. Unfortunately, we're not going to have an ag hearing in the Senate, but I know the House is, but I think maybe we could add it. But I think it's something we ought to be talking about. If we need these resources, we need to be able to put them forward. So I'll ask that, and I'll second what Dean Hoffman said about the vaccination program. We need to be putting pressure wherever we can, not just on USDA, but also on our federal congressmen, senators, to help us to try to push at least a pilot program through. That's a great idea, Governor, so I appreciate that. And then I would like to ask the question, maybe somebody can answer it. We are in Lent. We are about a month away from Easter as well as Passover, two of the biggest egg-consuming periods or seasons of the year. How are we going to look this year in terms of production? I recognize that we don't just get eggs from Pennsylvania, but most of us would like to purchase PA-proud products, right? PA-preferred products. So just a couple of things to throw out there, and thank you for indulging me.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Senator. Just a couple of points, and I want to tie together both Dean Hoffman's comments about vaccine and to your point about the dairy industry. It was a point of conversation with Secretary Rowlands and the governor about, hey, as we're talking about poultry vaccines, don't forget about dairy, right? And we brought up very clearly that our profile in Pennsylvania is very, very different and probably one of one across the nation, right? That you've got dairy with poultry and poultry with dairy. So as we witnessed, Dr. Hamburg can talk more about this, but I think what we witnessed last year in the high path AI in the dairy industry is a major concern for us. And we really pushed hard to the USDA to say, please consider inside the vaccine matrix, if you will, of decision making, put the dairy industry in there, right? Don't assume that that's not either necessary or secondary. And they agreed. I mean, that's something certainly that we wanted to raise. So thank you for pointing that out. I think to your second question, just how do you get ahead of this? There's a couple of things lessons that we've learned. And they're hard lessons. One certainly is the level of biosecurity, right? And who has it, and then not just the plan, but who is living that biosecurity every day, right? And that has to be every day front and center in every poultry operator, and then the extended community that goes with that. We've learned that. We've learned really, it ties in with what Scott was talking about with the live bird markets, but everybody's got to be doing the right biosecurity, living that biosecurity, and then adhering to it, and getting everybody else who comes on the premise, either works there or comes into service that in some way has to be on board. The second lesson is we spend a lot of time chasing things, right? And it's really frustrating that we have a map, but we don't have a complete map. We know that we've got the commercial operators in who are part of the baseline testing, and they've got a premise identification. Then you have all of these other folks who identify with agriculture when it's convenient to, but aren't there when you want them to be on the map, right? I'm trying to say there's a lot of folks with backyard flocks and others. This virus doesn't care how many. It only cares if you have the species of interest, right? So making sure that everybody, there's a Prem ID legislation that we have raised up to say, ultimately we need mandatory Prem ID. We can't not be guessing about whether someone has poultry in that neighborhood. When you draw those control zones, we need to know for sure. Like who is there, what size operations, and then importantly, how do you communicate, which is part 3. It's just how do you communicate with them? That's tough to do. I mean, the normal channels through Penn Ag and industry leaders work, but a lot of other folks aren't necessarily in those distribution channels. So that's an important piece of that we're working at. I mean, that's a lesson learned that we've got to get good at it. We've got to mandate that. It certainly has to be a mandate for purposes of reimbursement and investment. It should be paramount in terms of every decision. So when you send in the application for reimbursement, do you have the biosecurity plan, right? That has to be a question that I think expectation is that we should set that as the expectation. And then third, to your point about prices, I mean, we haven't seen any spike at this point. We're not where we were, 2 years ago when you had, so. Please.
As of right now, the U.S. ag industry has plenty of supply for the pending market. So there will be no major spikes currently. As long as it stays contained to Pennsylvania, I don't see that changing at the moment.
If I may add to that, I think what caused that spike in egg prices about a year ago was kind of a convergence of two things, right? There was a very large outbreak going on in California that wiped out, I believe it was roughly 70% of their poultry. That's a major egg state, and that was compounded by that flipping back and forth of the virus through dairy cattle to poultry, back to cattle, and back and forth again. And at the same time, Ohio, which is another large egg producing state, got hit very hard in their heart of their egg production area, as well as neighboring Indiana. So that took out, 3 very large areas of egg production all at the same time. What we're seeing here, while devastating, is a very different scale than what we saw about a year ago.
Yeah, Senator, please.
Just a curiosity question. I know the governor mentioned about talking with Secretary Rollins and that the vaccine would be not a tomorrow thing. We heard earlier about blood tests of birds coming off the farm. What is the difference? Obviously, it seems like both could, aim to stop what we're looking to stop, and that's the spread. What are the differences between, or the pluses or minuses, or is it cost considerations of the blood test? If vaccines aren't ready now, is there opportunity on the blood test front? And I don't know the answer to that, but I thought I'd ask because I heard both of these things talked about today.
Yeah, this one seems to be in my wheelhouse. So the reason why blood test has been a staple of avian influenza prevention and detection for decades, what that does is it detects antibodies against the virus within the blood of the bird. It's cheap, it's easy to get, it's quick, so it's been a great tool. In all those years that we were using it, low pathogenicity avian influenza is the main thing that was circulating, and we'd get occasional incursions of high path AI. That high path AI needed to mix with one of those low path strains before it could become infectious to turkeys and chickens. The new strain that came over in 2022, that is directly infectious from wild waterfowl to our turkeys and chickens. So the previous programs were basically, okay, low path AI, not that bad. If we can control it in time, we'll prevent that high path. But with this direct infection, that no longer works. So knowing if a poultry house had low path AI 2-3 weeks ago is not going to help me stop high path AI anymore. So we have to know what is the status of that house today on the day that we moved, not what was the status of that house 2 or 3 weeks ago, which is what you learn from the antibody testing. PCR testing is looking for active viral shedding. So if you're getting a PCR positive from a bird, that bird is shedding right there that very second that you put the swab in it.
Thank you.
Others?
Yeah, please, over here. Just introduce yourself, please. And sorry.
Hi, I'm Shelley Cuck with Cuck's Turkey. I'm the biosecurity coordinator. And before you had asked about other agencies that we would be in contact with that would be able to help. For new builds specifically, they're required to manage their stormwater runoff, and typically that's done by a retention pond. Is there any other outreach we could be doing to agencies that handle that side of things that would have another idea that we could utilize for that? Because that is a huge risk on any farm that you're building right now.
So I can talk a little bit about the biosecurity side of that. We've been partnering with USDA to do wildlife hazard audits. We are number 1 or 2 in the country for number of audits done. I spoke with Harris Glass with Wildlife Services last week, and we've got, I believe, 200 farms in queue. USDA is deploying additional personnel to Wildlife Services right now to get more of those done quickly. So I think that's a really important component of the puzzle. I have heard from several producers that some water management regulations have been countered to certain things like BCAP audits through USDA, things of that nature. I've been working with USDA to help them understand a little bit better what some of Pennsylvania regulations are regarding movement and alteration of surface waters and retention ponds and things of that nature. So there does need to be a mitigation there, but that mitigation can't always be the way that some people might envision it to be.
Aston, did you want to jump in? Were you, I saw your hand move. I didn't know if that was.
I mean, the only thing I wanted to encourage and just reiterate is the need for biosecurity and making sure we're doing it right. If I can help with any sort of audit program, I've had the privilege of being able to travel around the world and see what other countries do that maybe do it better than us. And we've implemented a lot of that ourselves here and seen success in doing that. And I really think as we wait for a vaccine, what we can do now is make sure we don't spread it. So that's all.
And Governor, if I may, and I'm going to look at Kevin to prepare himself. So, we're very unique in Pennsylvania with the amount of plain farmers, the amount of small farmers. There's tens of millions of people who get their protein with feathers on it. A lot of them move through Kevin's family's business. It's a reality that we have, these small farms. They're going to be here. If they're not here, they're going to go underground, and that's the last thing we want at this point in time. I think, we've looked at the opportunity with Penn State Extension to do a little more work, and obviously that would take funding, Chairman Martin. But I think, in observing this for the last 3 or 4 years, it's one of the weak spots to hit more of those plain farmers. So, Kevin, if you could introduce yourself. I know you've been the beneficiaries of the lost income program that saved your business, but also accommodating those small farmers throughout this region.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. I do appreciate having the opportunity to be here. Obviously, we are very unique in our form of the poultry industry here compared to everyone else. My family and I, my name's Kevin Lutz, my family and I own Green Dragon Small Animal Auction in Ephrata. We're one of probably 15 businesses in the state that are very similar to us, so I'm just an example of one. But we've had the position where we're in a control zone very frequently based on where the avian flu control zones have been in the past couple of years. I think we spent about 6 months out of last year in a control zone at one point or another. Obviously, that's a big hit to the business. Between 60 to 90% of our sales are poultry, depending on the time of year. And as Chris said, many of our customers are plain sect community, local, smaller farms, non-integrated farms. Again, very different from what everyone else here around the table is representing. But as far as the reimbursement program, it has been a huge lifesaver for us as a business.
Good.
We have, my family and I have owned the auction for 16 years now. I've been involved since I'm a little kid, but there's been poultry sold at Green Dragon since 1932, so there's a lot of tradition there too. Again, just one example, but not being able to sell poultry and being able to service the small farms that come into us, and also the people that want to buy directly, has been a big hurdle for us. We lost our business to a fire in 2014. We went through COVID. This has been the hardest. But the reimbursement program has been a real lifeline, and I can't express appreciation enough for that. Again, we're very unique compared to the other situations here, and it's been very easy for us to do the application and work through it like that. Good. To speak to also what Chris said, a lot of small farms, I'm looking at Lancaster County, but across the state, have poultry in one way or another, whether they're using it to diversify their farms, to make a go at it. A small dairy also might have a flock of 200 layer hens to sell eggs. We often end up then seeing those spent fowl at the end. But also just backyard folks. I would echo, though, the getting the word out is certainly a challenge. We try to do that as our business. I agree 100% that it is difficult to get the information out to the non-integrated operations. The smaller plain sect farms, if they're coming to us after a month and still don't know that there's avian flu in the county, that to me is a problem. So any help there would be great. But again, just to make it continue to work, we've tried to be creative with biosecurity. Obviously, inherently, it's difficult, but working with Chris, coming up with some ideas to implement things at our operation to hopefully then be able to reflect that to others too in the same situation.
Thank you. Your point about pardon me, communication on biosecurity is really well taken. I mean, we're trying to do everything in our administration, obviously through the Secretary, to amp up our communications. One of my asks of all of you today is to do the same. Word of mouth on your social media channels, what have you. We've also spent a good bit of time talking to the Amish community in more private settings about the importance of them being engaged in biosecurity. And I must say, we've gotten a really positive response and work well with them. So we're trying to do everything we can on our end. I welcome your feedback. If there are more or better ways we can be communicating, let me know. Every day we strive to be better than the day before, so let us know what we can do on that front. And my ask of all of you is to amp up raise your own voices and amp up your own communication in this space. I know we only have a few minutes left. Chairman Dan Mal, the Ag Committee in the House, wanted to say a few words.
Thank you, and thank you so much for putting this together and everybody for attending this today. It's been a lot of great information, but I'm going to go down just a little bit different road here, and I'm going to lean on the vaccine issue. And something I haven't heard about is we have a lot of trading partners in Europe, and from what I understand, any bird or bird product that has a vaccine in it, we're going to have a tough time selling it to Europe.
Right.
So has there been any conversation between Secretary Rollins and our European trading partners as to, because if it's here, it's a matter of time before it's going to be there, and they're going to need to do something as well. Are we working together between the USDA and Europe so that we can maybe come to a vaccine that we can all accept?
I think, look, that's an issue that's been identified. It's a challenge. I know some of our federal partners are working on it. I can tell you I've personally spoken to Secretary Rollins. I spoke to Senator McCormick about this issue at some length, and Secretary Lutnick about it as well. No one, and again, I mean this in no way to be disrespectful or critical at all. These are complex issues. No one has an immediate answer on it. I think everyone has identified the challenge, and we're going to work through it. And our administration is going to continue to work closely with our federal partners on this.
Thanks. Let's hope we can get this issue resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Tess.
There we go. Oh, thank you. Tessa Applegate, I kind of echo your thoughts, Kevin, and that's kind of where my question came from. Clark's Feed Mill, we're a very small fourth-generation family business. The idea, I think Heather kind of said, of the integrator, we're commonly looked at as the integrator, which technically, by specific terms, we are. But we aren't fully vertically integrated. So we don't have a hatchery. We don't have a processing plant. We have a family feed mill, 1929, and we have a poultry grow out. So everything in our feed mill goes to our birds. I guess my question is from the business side, and first I do want to thank the recovery fund is huge, and being able to tell our farmers that they have this opportunity like Heather is huge. Again, we have a lot of these small farms. All of our farmers are small. They have at most 3 houses. A lot are purchasing. We have a lot of father-sons that have grown for us for many years, and the sons are now buying the farm. And again, they have those mortgage payments and all that. I guess my question comes to us as a small business, lacking the hatchery and the processing plant, the margins are a lot thinner. So I guess what does that look like for a small integrator for us when it comes to that recovery? If we were to get positive, we're all in. We're currently building a new feed mill. Our feed mill is too out of date. We don't have a choice. So we just broke construction in November, and to be transparent, our homes are. Our family cabin, our family farm that grows for us, that's all pledged. There wasn't anything left on the table to not pledge on this project. So AI is a huge threat to us. It could wipe out us, and then that means everything personal is also on the line. So I guess, what does that look like from a small business perspective of this recovery fund? What are the steps? How much is available? Where does it end? Or, heaven forbid, we're at the tail end. What is left for us? I guess just that process to better prepare.
And Tess, thank you. I mean, I think that's sort of the reminder to all of us that from farm to you, there's personal pledge of finance and commitment and capital in this, and that was sort of the undertow of we need to do something to give some assurance to you and the farm community. I'll just say that Greg Hostetter, Deputy Secretary, is sort of managing that with Lisa Graybill, does a phenomenal job. You're protected in there. I think you have to sort of work through that pyramid of the feed, the birds, the farmer, your exposure, et cetera. But that is inside of the consideration for every one of the operations. One by one, to go through what's there. There are limits for everybody in it. It's not, as we heard here, I don't think it makes anybody whole, but we had a couple of priorities. Make sure you can meet the mortgage. right? Make sure you can keep your employees, cover whatever, care and health care and insurance, et cetera. And then some of those sort of utility pieces and the bank, of course, right? So that's the way it's shaped. I would just say for every business, whether it's the farm or you as a commercial business, that's a consideration for what we do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Brad Wagner with the Wanger Group. So as I look around the room, a lot of friendly customers and competitors here as well. But I was happy to hear Heather here, that she's here representing the farmers, and you don't look around the room and see a lot of the producers that ultimately we need to keep in business. They support our business. So the PA Recovery Fund has been a blessing to many of us, Wangers as well. But the old adage, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of gain. So using that money maybe in a preventative manner rather than a recovery manner, it could be approach. I know, Governor Shapiro, you mentioned how the vaccine could take months. This is a present issue and needs to be, in my opinion, accelerated. If you're sitting neighbors with Scott, he did provide some things. You may or may not agree with those comments, but nonetheless, he has extra. I think as we look to tackle this issue, eyes wide open when we consider vaccines, preventative measures, et cetera. So thanks for hosting this, but I do think we need to accelerate the action here.
Thank you, Governor. Clearly, I think Chris said 100% of the poultry industry is represented here today. And it's clear that we need help, Governor. And we appreciate you being here. Senator Martin and other distinguished legislators, please continue to work in a bipartisan manner as you're clearly doing, and help this group of people come up with the processes that are going to solve this. And as you said, Governor, we are going to make it through this, but it takes a lot of communication. So just keep the lines open, please.
You have my word. Both the private communications with folks like Chris and other governmental leaders at the state and federal level, Democrats and Republicans alike, all that's going to continue. We're going to see this all the way through to the end, and we're going to make sure folks are able to recover. Again, this unique fund that we have allows us to prepare, to respond, and to recover. We're going to use those resources wisely. We're going to continue to communicate, and we are going to get through it. Thank you. Yes.
Good morning to everyone. I am Smelon Moreira. I am one of the investors and partners at Hillandale. We just acquired the company last year in May 2025. So that's one thing that is not good for business is volatility, right? We see the company as a great operation, outstanding in terms of performance and so on, but this volatility on the prices that you are talking here, it's very bad in our perspective. We have operations in Brazil, in Spain, and I can tell two very great things that we see here. From our perspective, I have never seen such a coordination between government and private initiatives so well done, so congratulations on that. And I'm looking from European perspective and South American perspectives, so this is great. The operations and the folks, producers that we have seen here talking to and exchanging experience, you are learning from the market is great. It's great that we have this indemnification process here to help all the producers. This is very good as well. We are here to stay. So we are here to help, to integrate with the community. We are very proud to be together with you guys. And the only few things that I would humbly suggest and try to help on this process is these small family producers. I think we should pay more attention to them, give them more support, technically support them better in terms of biosafety. It's when I discuss with our directors I'm not a specialist, I'm a financial guy and investor, so when I discuss with them, it's all the time we get this conversation that they are not very well technically support and they have always looked like some threats to bigger operations. So we have a lot of sites with 200,000 birds, 300,000 birds, and then we get threat or get in a region that it's risky because someone else is producing with 200 or 300 birds just in the neighborhood. Don't get me wrong, we are not saying that we don't want those guys, but they have to be better supported, not for their own, but also because those 200, 500 birds can have a huge impact on the region that we have to kill like 500,000 birds. So we are here to stay and to help as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we're just about up on time. Anyone else? I want to give Malone and Miller, local guys, an opportunity, maybe a minute each, and then I want to give Dr. Hamburg, Secretary Redding, Chris, and myself a quick minute to wrap up as well. This will be part of ongoing dialogue. This is not the end of our conversations, but I want to give you guys, I know you didn't raise your hand, but you both represent these communities. If there's anything you want to say to close this out here. They're fighting over who's going to be more of a gentleman and go first here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Secretary Redding, and all your staff and everyone for being here in the 41st District. I wish we were gathering for some other purpose, but this is the issue of the moment, and I'm grateful that you're all here. And as well, here, where we're meeting is the Rapid Response Center, which is key to this entire discussion. For my part, it's building, it's equipment, and all of that, but really it is a reflection of the value and the vision of trying to address this issue. So my thanks to all that helped make this facility possible, and with hopes that something like this might be able to be replicated as needed. Hopefully it won't be needed, but if so, in other parts. So for just to say thank you for all the producers, thank you for all the legislators who are here. A lot of my colleagues are here in the House. We're grateful, and we're going to link arms and do what we can to work together to address this issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah, thanks. We're frequently at the same things, and I always end up talking first, so, give them a chance. But I really am appreciative for everybody being out for the updates that we've been getting from Secretary Redding and his team. We have a lot of really great producers across the field. And, I know that there is concern. We already have this strain of HPAI coming in a new tactic and a new infection rate. And, there is concern about potential cross. And, we haven't seen that yet. But having more and more information available so that everyone can circle up and do what is the most effective is really, really essential, and really thankful for you guys pulling that off.
Thank you, Senator Malone. Senator Martin, any closing thoughts?
Well, first off, I want to thank you, Governor, for being here today. Sadly, it feels like deja vu from our meeting on the Shirk Farm a few years ago, but I think what really came out of that was, one, it was really driven by the industry's desire and want to be able to communicate to us what their feelings were as to how things were going on the ground. And I believe that bipartisan effort of working together really led to not only how we can have a better response, but also how do we plan for the future and be prepared better. I can't say enough, just thank you to all those who have been responding in this unbelievable weather time that we've been in. The sheer fact that we've had people doing what they're doing, cleaning farms and dealing with this in sub-degree temperatures and dealing with water, I can't even imagine. But what I do know, and what we have shown our commitment in a very strong partnership between industry, between chambers, and between branches of government, is that we are all here and want to continue to hear what's working, what's not working right now as part of that sprint, but how we can do things better in terms of the marathon moving forward and continuing to be a leader in this country in this format that we have now established to keep doing things better. So we're here for you. We're going to keep communicating, and we'll all get through this together.
Thank you, Senator Martin. Dr. Hamburg.
Some of the themes that have come up here today, we've talked a lot about biosecurity and better surveillance. We're working to improve that through things like the Biosecurity Assurance Program. We've heard a little bit about partnership amongst all of the various stakeholders in the poultry industry, as well as our government and sister agency counterparts. Things like premise ID is another way that we can help advance that partnership and advance that cohesion. And I think, one thing I'd like to get out there is we're still listening, right? A lot of the best answers come from those that are in the field every day. If you've got ideas on how we can do this better, how we can work together better, how we can prevent this better, I'd love to talk to you. The only way we get through this is together.
Thank you. Chris, and then the Secretary.
We're here today because of the visit that you had a couple years ago with Senator Martin. That's why we're here. We haven't beat this, but we sort of have this 7-hour rule, and this facility has allowed us to get out, get on the farms, knock that virus down as quickly as possible. So that coming together a couple years ago is sort of why we're here today, and it has been a tremendous help to address that. Still a lot to do. Appreciate the openness. Secretary Redding is always taking calls day and night, weekends. Really appreciate that. The staff that he has, Deputy Secretary Graybill, Greg Hostetter is here. Appreciate all of that. So again, it's why we're here, and a great conversation, and certainly your understanding, your depth of understanding, your willingness to grasp this makes me feel better knowing that we have the kind of support at the very top. So thank you very much, and look forward to continuing to work with you on happier things.
Thank you.
Yeah, Governor, thanks. And I'll end where I began with a thank you. I mean, I think just to this community, as I listen, I tried to keep notes of recommendations, whether it's on the mental health and wellness, and the work with PEMA that's looking at some of the vaccine discussions here. Certainly continuing to build out our resources. I'd say two things at the end. One would be every farm and every time that there is a depop of some type, there's a lesson learned. Right, and just sort of capturing those lessons. Some of them are, for us. Some of those are at the farm level, right, and the integrator in the community. And I'm always amazed at the things that we learn about what happens, the flow lines, and who's going to show up, and how do those decisions get made. So just asking you to share those lessons learned. I mean, they're really critical in the moment, but trying to capture those so we get better, right? We keep getting better. Which leads to point two is, I think for all of us, an awareness of what's happened the last month and just the ability to meet the surge, that surge demand. And we've got some new resources. We've got a center here, of course. We have, the USDA, very fortunately, the National Guard. But there's also another tier to this, right? That if you stay in this sustained mode, we've got to be thinking about a lot of you who have access to either personnel or equipment and resources that allow us to surge when you need to. So I just sort of plant that seed that is something that, as we, the department, think about it, we can push the limits, but there's also just a field force, right, that's got to be there to help do that response, and that's where you fit in. So open ideas about how do we do that. We've got the resources to do that, and I think a willingness from all to make that happen. And then just to say to the governor, I think this is a back and forth, and never have had sort of a governor with sort of the access but also interest of just saying, what do we need to do, right? And how do we respond to this? And what's the right thing to do? How do we make sure that the systems are responding the way they need to respond? So always sort of interested, a high level of sort of compassion about what we do, but also a sincere interest in the business of agriculture and the people in it. So thank you.
Thank you. Secretary, thank you. And I'll repeat what I said earlier. I think we've got the best ag secretary in the entire country and no better leader of this effort than Secretary Redding. And so I truly just want to thank you and your staff for the great work that they are doing. I appreciate all the comments from today. Just, kind of summing up, I hear loud and clear on the staffing front. We're going to continue to make staff available to work through this, hear loud and clear, and I think I can speak for the members of the legislature. We understand the importance of having funding available, and I know we're going to work together on a bipartisan basis to ensure that that funding continues to be available. I hear the comments on biosecurity, both how we go about it and how we communicate about it. So I think those are really important comments that we're going to take to heart. Also really appreciate your comments, Jim, about mental health. I know others touched on it too, and we're going to think about how to drive those services out, including through PEMA. I thought that was a really good suggestion. The vaccine conversation I get, I think everyone here also understands we've got a federal component to this too that we've got to work through. Trust me, I'm going to keep pushing on that front. And again, hasn't been adversarial at all, but we all recognize there's a lot of layers to this and we've got to work through it. And I just want to stress, I think, Brad, you made this point about colleagues and competitors you have at this table. Let's not lose sight of that, right? We've got folks from different branches of government, different parties. We've got people who work together and people who compete with one another all around this table, not at cross purposes, but at common purposes. And to me, that is something that I think, oftentimes goes unnoticed. We should not lose sight of that. That's a big deal that we could just convene around this table and work together in this way. I think the last thing I just want to say is, part of the reason I appreciate the Secretary talking about how engaged I am in the work that he does. Part of it is because I think what you do is truly noble. I mean, it is a noble cycle to see what happens on your farms, in your factories, in your facilities, and then what ends up on people's tables, not just here in Pennsylvania, but the way we power this country with Pennsylvania agriculture. There are a few things more noble in life than what you do and what your colleagues do, and I respect the hell out of that. And I want to do my part to help you get back up on your feet. And so we're going to be here with you every step of the way. We're going to get through this. There will be happier times, Chris, where we'll be able to celebrate more good things, but we're going to work through it together, and this will be one of many conversations I expect that we'll be having over these next few, hopefully weeks, not months, as we work our way through it. So thanks for giving us your time today. Everyone knows how to reach the Secretary, our state veterinarian, my office. Please stay in touch. Obviously, you know how to reach your lawmakers. There's no wrong door here. We're all working together. So please continue to lift your voices up, and we'll continue to work together. Thank you. You all got the opportunity to see folks from a wide cross-section of this Commonwealth come together with common purpose, and that is to attack and to defeat this high-path avian influenza outbreak. Unfortunately, Pennsylvania is now home to about half of the cases in the United States, but we've been prepared for this. We're working through it with the private sector and with the public sector. And as you heard me say before, I gave this community my word, we will be there every step of the way. We will get through this with them, and our poultry farmers and others will get back up on their feet. This is a noble cycle, what happens on our farmlands in this Commonwealth and our facilities. The way these folks go to work every day to feed our neighbors is truly a wonderful thing, and we want to get that return to normal as quickly as possible. So we're going to continue to aggressively go after this high-path avian influenza, and we will defeat it. I'm joined today by Chris Herr of Penn Ag, and of course the great Secretary Russell Redding, so we'll be happy to take a few of your questions right now.
Shapiro, has the federal government given any confirmation that Pennsylvania would be the site of the pilot program of any potential vaccine?
We're working closely with Secretary Rollins and the folks at USDA, and I must say Secretary Rollins has been wonderful to work with. She and I have spoken multiple times, including at the White House in person on Friday. They've been able to meet our request for staffing. They've been able to meet our request for some regulatory relief in order to get more veterinarians out there. And I think they also understand the importance of figuring out how to get a vaccine out there. I think Secretary Rollins point is that that's not going to be something that they're able to deliver on tomorrow. Perhaps as a pilot over the course of the next few months. She's given us her word that they're going to work through it and do their best, and I take her at her word, and I appreciate her work there.
Be the site of a pilot program?
I didn't hear.
Would you want Pennsylvania to be the site of a pilot program?
I can't speak for Secretary Rollins other than to say that we're having really good communication. She understands that farmers and others are calling for it, that I've asked for it, and that we're going to work through it. As we discussed here at the table, there's a lot of complicating factors at the federal level, including trade. And I say this not to be critical in any way of our federal partners, but they've got to work through those issues. And so that's why it's not a tomorrow thing. It's something that, as the Secretary said, will likely take months.
Governor, could the three of you address the economic toll that this has taken, particularly on the producers here in Lancaster County?
Well, I'll just say at a state level, and then I'll invite Chris to share a few of his thoughts. At a state level, we're prepared. We're the only state in the country with a high path avian influenza fund, which has about $60 million in it for prevention, protection, and to help farmers recover and get back up on their feet. The legislature's also given me authority to dip into the general fund should that $60 million not be enough. Obviously, we'll communicate with the legislature should that be the case. We feel prepared at the state level. Obviously, this is taking a dramatic and devastating toll on our poultry farmers across Pennsylvania. We're working with them to get them back up on their feet as quickly as possible. Chris, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I think the ripple effect is certainly evident. You have feed companies that were here today. Those feed trucks aren't going out. They're service companies, so it's not just the farmer. So it'll be into the tens of millions of dollars, the effect when the economists look at this finally.
Anything else?
This facility here, what's all of this equipment? Where does all of this go? How does it work when it actually gets to the farms?
Yeah, this is a one-of-one facility. I'm going to ask the Secretary to talk about it, but we're incredibly proud of what we've developed here. Mr. Secretary.
Yeah, so this Rapid Response Center really was designed to be a warehouse of response pieces of equipment and people. So what you see around here are things that get deployed when the phone call comes from the farm to the state veterinarian. We can dispatch from this location any of the equipment you see here. And by the way, there's also equipment that's already deployed in the field. But that's the point. It's a rapid response. Whatever we need, trucks, sprayers, people, and personal protective equipment as an example. That's what we designed it for.
Right. Yeah, to that.
Please, Chris.
I think it's important. Let's be clear. Animals are being put down, and everybody's had a family pet. Unfortunately, at some point in time when that happens, goal one of the governor, of secretary, is to, as humanely as possible, put down really, really sick animals, and that's what this site has allowed us to do. The governor and secretary have provided the equipment. Again, you go into your vet's office, it's a horrible, horrible time. But I can tell you the part that has been, the way you sort of reconcile this in your mind is you're doing the right thing for that animal. And this facility has given us all the tools to do that as humanely as possible. So I think it's really important that time is a significant factor in all this, and doing it quickly is really important. Sorry about that.
Anything else, Alex?
Mallory, go ahead. Just speak up for us.
We talked a lot about biosecurity earlier. Are you aware of any laser technology that could help with the local farms, and would that be implemented?
We do it. Great question. A lot of this is being driven by wild birds. Birds are moving us around, migratory birds. There's lasers that work amazingly well. It's too bad Mike Martz isn't here. He's probably still here. They're able to cover about 80 acres with one of these laser systems, which really will knock down, or not knock down, it doesn't hurt the bird, but it'll, raptors, things like that, it will move them away. Very, very effective, and we can grab Mike if you like before you leave. But yeah, laser technology is part of the answer.
Anything else?
Will more resources be needed from the General Assembly? Now, you were asked that today. Will you believe more resources resources may be needed to help bring farms up to speed with this technology and biosecurity, as it was talked about?
If they are, I will make an appeal to lawmakers. You saw today, bipartisan group of lawmakers, including Senator Malone, who I know are prepared to step up for our farmers. So I expect that if we need it and I ask for it, the legislature will deliver on it.
What has the collaboration been like with other states, since birds are, they don't know about state lines?
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you, I've talked to my fellow governors in the area, particularly Jersey is dealing with this a bit. A lot of cooperation, coordination, sharing of information, which is probably the most important thing. The key is, and Secretary Redding will speak to this, he works incredibly closely with his fellow ag secretaries in the other states. So it's been one of these things where everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction and working together in common purpose. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Governor, thank you. It's an important part of our response. I mean, the whole blue team that is here comes from all over the country. I mean, we've got 24 members, and there's probably 24 states, that are represented in that group. We're in constant contact with, the Delmarva Peninsula, given the poultry density. We've had outreach directly from other states. There are 12 states at the moment across the country with high-path avian influenza. They have been in contact with us about, one, the recovery fund, right? Because they're like, well, how did you do that? I mean, that's the biggest ask that we're getting from producers is they need some help. And at this point, the only way to respond is reach to the USDA and the federal government. And then they're just sort of pledging their support and help. If it's equipment that's needed, if it's personnel that's needed, they're advocating with us on vaccine discussions as well. So, yeah, it's been a really beautiful response. Everybody wants to see this in Pennsylvania be contained and suppressed because they know that if you can't do it here, the chance of doing it somewhere else, very difficult.
Yeah, we actually hosted both the state veterinarians from New Jersey earlier this year, and then just recently deployed equipment to New Jersey to help them with an avian influenza case. The virus does not differentiate between borders of counties or states. We've also worked very closely with Maryland and Delaware. They've used some of this facility and they've used equipment and resources. So, yeah, it's the leadership of these two guys. It doesn't have boundaries. It doesn't have borders.
Talking to other states to collaborate, are you concerned about avian flu spreading here from Pennsylvania to Maryland or Delaware, the Delmarva Peninsula?
We are concerned about the spread of high-path avian influenza, whether it spreads from here somewhere else or from somewhere else here. That's why we take this so seriously. We've thrown everything we have at it, from resources to time. We're coordinating at a state, local, and federal level. We want to do everything we can to kind of shorten the lifespan of this virus. It started way earlier than any of us would have hoped, and now our goal is to end it more quickly than others might expect. Thank you all very, very much. In that spirit of cooperation that brings us here today, I want to take a moment and thank the lawmakers who are first. Just to put that into some perspective for you, is not only earlier, dramatically earlier in the season than when we expected, that represents more than half. The aforementioned Senator Martin, whose district we are in, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having us here today. Representative Miller, whose district we are in. But I think it is also important to note we're joined by our other senator from Lancaster County. And all of the secretaries did a great job of identifying the others who are going to be needed to help complement these efforts. He'll speak on that in just a moment. You've got Democrats here, you've got Republicans here. There is no partisan way to address high-path avian influenza. It requires all of us to work together. I think it's important for you to know who is all